the data that we deliver to both public and private sector, it's equated for the economic benefit being kind of anywhere between 800 million to £1 billion a year.
Generative AI is great, but if you're not applying it to a really in-depth, well-mapped, well-understood data set, then it's just giving you the sorts of answers that you would typically get by Googling or doing some pretty high-level research.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on organizations to actually have an AI strategy, because you hear about all of the productivity gains that can be made from having these tools within your toolbox. Building these high-performing teams takes time. So it's one of those end goals that you reach through probably months, if not months, years of continuous improvements and tweaks that you make within the team to continuously try and find a better way of working.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the DevLab Podcast brought to you by HackerJob. I'm Phil Kell, and I'm your host for today. In this week's episode, we sit down with Manish Jethwa, who is the CTO at Ordnance Survey. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Manish, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So look, I think a good place to start on any podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey into technology, and how you ended up in your current role at Ordnance Survey?
Sure, can do that. Well, it feels like I've been in technology for a long time. I studied engineering science at Oxford University, and that was engineering that covered all areas from thermodynamics, electronics, civil engineering, but I specialized in computer vision, which has now become part of artificial intelligence and in that whole world. I then went on to do a PhD over in the States at MIT in the same field. And then upon returning to the UK, my first job was as a research scientist exploring markerless motion capture. So this is that area where you have actors wearing kind of retroreflective markers, cameras watching them, and used in all kinds of interesting applications like games and movies. So, certainly an interesting first job. I then kind of worked my way through various jobs, including kind of a senior researcher up to head of research, and then took on the development activities as kind of a head of research and development. From there, I think it was a natural progression up to a CTO position within an organization of around 100 people. And then as we started to introduce new products into the market, I also took on the product function. So it was quite a unique opportunity to take a dual role as a chief product and technology officer. Often those are two kind of distinct roles, but it gives me an opportunity to, one, kind of understand what the market needs and then actually engage with the engineering teams to build it. So a really kind of great opportunity there. The company I'd been working for at that point for around kind of 15 years then got acquired, and I moved into a pure product role. But I realized at that point I was really missing the technology aspect. So in December, I moved into this role at Ordnance Survey as CTO.
Fantastic. And I guess with your background in computer vision and things like that, is that something that you're able to apply in this current role, or perhaps something that you just kind of keep tabs on and keep up to date with?
Well, actually, yeah, it's a first opportunity in a long time that I've able to utilize some of the skills right the way back from my degree and my PhD to be able to apply it into the space. Because at Ordnance Survey, we analyze images to be able to then provide key kind of mapping data. So actually, there's quite a lot of kind of a computer vision activity going on and machine learning from a deep learning perspective also happening here. So it feels like I've come back to a place where kind of at least have some background knowledge.
So yeah, it's always nice when you go full circle and you can bring that that kind of IC hands-on knowledge to the leadership role that you're in.
Absolutely.
I guess focusing in on that leadership role, I mean, as a new CTO, what have been your initial priorities for defining Ordnance Survey's technology strategy?
Yes, I've been in the role just over 4.5 months now. And I mean, initially with an organization of this size that's been around for over 2 centuries, there's a lot to kind of try and understand. So I've really been focusing on getting to know the team and the bits that they're working on, understanding the technology landscape, which is pretty vast. And understanding the value proposition also to the customers, because you can get into the technology, but unless you know how that's being utilized or the outputs are being utilized by the customers, it's hard to be able to then define a strategy. But we have started to work on defining a longer term technology roadmap. That includes a kind of AI strategy internally, because we have research functions. So how does the AI play into the research and technology roadmap? And then how does that also fold into a wider organizational strategy?
Fantastic. And I suppose, does that then feed into the balancing act that I guess you're involved in terms of the various different roles you need to cover, from the kind of product development to the cyber security? Is it the user feedback and the understanding and the value that you're delivering to users that guides that, or are there other principles that you're applying to try and balance those different priorities?
So there's a couple of different things there. Obviously, as a CTO, you cover a number of different areas, as you said, from product development, cybersecurity being another one. Quite lucky to have an experienced senior leadership team who can focus on each of those key areas. So whether it's engineering, architecture, security, technology operations, or even just the delivery. But the challenge that we have is obviously we're delivering data on a kind of continuous cycle out to our customers to make sure they have the most up-to-date data. So when you're thinking about a technology strategy, you've got to make sure that you continue to deliver. So you can't, you've got to change as much as you can, but you have to be mindful of what you need to continue to deliver, because the customers are really dependent on the data we deliver and it being up to date. So there's a challenge there. And with an organization the size of Ordnance Survey, which is around 1,500 people, there's a lot of different areas that need the necessary focus. So that senior leadership team is kind of critical, who have specializations in each of those areas to be able to make sure that it's getting the due care and attention it needs.
And what sort of trends are most exciting to you at the moment, and how does Ordnance Survey plan to leverage some of these perhaps new technologies that are emerging at the moment?
Well, I think the main trend that everyone's talking about at the moment is artificial intelligence, right? So we've already touched on that a little bit earlier in the conversation. The part of artificial intelligence that's really generating a lot of interest right now is the generative AI element, because, with all of the developments that OpenAI have pushed out, there's a lot of new tooling out there. But actually, Ordnance Survey has been working in this area of machine learning and computer vision for decades. And so I've got a really interesting opportunity here at Ordnance Survey to be able to gather up a lot of that work that's been happening and start to channel it in a specific direction, which, yes, it enables some of the new technologies that are being developed from a generative AI perspective, but really harnesses the deep learning expertise we've got to be able to deliver additional value out to our customers. So this is generally, you extract the data out from imagery, but then you've also got to tie it in with some of the foundational data sets that we deliver, like the property and street references that we deliver out to our customers.
And yeah, I think a lot of companies are kind of working that out at the moment. Generative AI is great, but if you're not applying it to a really in-depth, well-mapped, well-understood data set, then it's just giving you the sorts of answers that you would typically get by Googling or doing some pretty high-level research. So I guess, the years of experience that Ordnance Survey have of kind of working through these things have probably stood you in good stead to then try and apply those new technologies.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on organizations to actually have an AI strategy, because you hear about all of the productivity gains that can be made from having these tools within your toolbox. And so organizations are really scrambling around to put a strategy together, but the data might not necessarily be in the right format, or they don't have a clear idea about where those productivity gains can come from. And so it can be a bit of a challenge. There's a slightly different problem here in that we've got a lot of activity going on, and that has been going on for a long time. How do you end up channeling that to be able to make sure you're getting the highest return for the investment that you're making?
And are there any particular, I guess, project or product that you're working on at the moment that you could maybe give us a little sneak peek of, where you're looking to try and leverage the kind of new emerging technologies?
Well, I think there's a clear area in terms of how our products are actually delivered out to our customers. So a large chunk of the products that we deliver are data-based products that our consumers and our customers will use. The challenge that is often the case is how do you provide that data, and how do you engage with it? How do you find the right data sets? And actually, generative AI provides a great opportunity for users to be able to engage with the data and be able to have a more natural interface into trying to find the data that they want to be able to utilize. So speech-based interfaces to say, I want to be able to find all of the properties that are over 15 meters in height. Previously, you'd have to write quite a detailed query to do that. now you can probably say it, have voice recognition, translate that into a query, and pull out the data you need. So there are opportunities like that we're exploring. So that's one example.
Fantastic, which is incredible for accessibility. It's incredible for lots of different reasons, right? Not just the ease of use for your everyday user.
Absolutely.
So it makes the product way more accessible for anyone out there.
That's a great point.
Great. So look, we've had a bit of a sneak peek maybe there into some of the technologies that you're trying to apply. And I think certainly anyone out there listening in that is interested in, well, I mean, not just the AI side of things. I'm sure there are plenty of cool projects, plenty of interesting projects going on across Ordnance Survey, but certainly anyone who's interested in getting more involved in the AI side of things or leveraging some of these technologies, certainly want to check out the podcast description and make sure you know exactly how to get in touch with Ordnance Survey to find out more about some of these projects that they have going on. What I wanted to come on to next was more around kind of your approach to, I suppose, the team management. So how do you approach building and fostering high-performing teams within the tech industry?
Right, it's a really, really great question. So it's one of the things I think I'm most passionate about is really around how do you build high-performing teams. And I think it's important to try and detail what do we exactly mean by a high-performing team. It's usually one around kind of high output and high quality. And building this team through complementary skills, I think, is a fundamental part of it. So I think you need to remember that building these high-performing teams takes time. So it's one of those end goals that you reach through probably months, if not months, years of continuous improvements and tweaks that you make within the team to continuously try and find a better way of working. And actually, I'm a firm believer in building high-performing teams through diversity, because I think the introduction of diverse ways of thinking, diverse backgrounds actually can sometimes yield new ideas and new ways of working much more readily. So I actually recently wrote a post on how do you kind of energize or kind of create a high performing team through diversity. And it's I welcome people to go and have a read of it if you're interested. But I think those are the key elements.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you could share that with us, we'll definitely make sure that we get that into the description as well. I think it'd be great to give people the ability to go and get that additional context. And I suppose just to drill into that a little bit further, is that something that happens organically? So you build a cross-functional team that bring different skills, different opinions from different backgrounds. Does that then happen organically, or are there things that you need to put in place to kind of manufacture and ensure that you reap the benefits of that diverse team?
I think you need to be able to create the right environment for that team to be able to flourish. So there's a level of kind of independence that you need to be able to allow, and safety for that team to operate. Because there's examples, there's a great book by Matthew Syed actually called Rebel Ideas, where he talks about the idea about how do you create great teams. And there's a danger sometimes as leaders of those teams that you present a sense of hierarchy that then means that you can't be challenged. And I think you need to leave yourself quite open to and there's an element of vulnerability there about being open to new ideas and new ways of working, so that although you might be leading the team, you're completely open to the team suggesting new ideas and new kind of methodologies. So creating the right environment for that team to flourish, I think, is absolutely critical.
Yeah, which I guess comes back to then the overall culture of the business, and something that you need all different departments across the business, not just maybe the technology department, to be adopting these different principles in order to make sure that, across the business, you've got all those connections and everyone is working and collaborating to the level that you'd like them to be. Fantastic. And thank you again for another recommendation. We'll definitely add that to our reading list. And again, we'll make sure that Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed is linked in the podcast description for anyone that would like to delve into that particular topic a little bit further. How do we ensure that the organization's technology supports its mission of providing crucial mapping data?
So within Ordnance Survey, the production of today's mapping is completely underpinned by technology. So this includes everything from how we go about capturing the data, high accuracy GPS data to get the positioning, the data refinery where we kind of enrich the data with a lot of added value, all the way through to the services that help to deliver it, be it through APIs or direct kind of delivery of the data. So actually technology is at the heart of everything we do across Ordnance Survey, right from the beginning where we get the specification right the way through to delivering the data out to the customers and how they use it. So it's crucial to kind of the mapping data element.
Bit of a novice question, I'm sure, but where do the specifications come from? So what kind of guides you in which projects to work on and what you actually need to deliver? How do you kind of collect that and decide what it is you're going to deliver in?
So a large part of it is around engagement with the customer. So we'll talk to our kind of local government customers, national government customers, so both public and private sector, and our partners as well that utilize our data. And we'll basically do workshops with them to be able to identify what are the new areas. We've got a set of kind of product managers internally that also are thinking about what does the data model look like, how can it evolve? And then there's an element also that's being driven by technology, right? What are we capable of being able to extract and where can we add additional value? So you really need to find the harmony between all three of those. What does the customer need? What are we able to do? And what kind of ideas do we have for the future to be able to really identify the direction? And it's a balance of all three of those.
Fantastic. Excellent. And I think that might bring us on quite nicely to our next question, which was kind of what misconceptions about Ordnance Survey's work do people have? And I know I've actually done a podcast with Ordnance Survey in the past a few years ago, and something that really struck me was, being honest, when I think of Ordnance Survey, I think of maps, right? I think of hiking, I think of I guess the traditional delivery of Ordnance Survey, but actually the work you do really underpins a lot of government services and a lot of crucial, services that we utilize on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know if I've stolen your thunder there, but maybe if we could elaborate on that, and then of course any other misconceptions you feel like there are.
No, absolutely, Phil. You have stolen, absolutely. I mean, I think that is the biggest misconception. I think everyone I've spoken to, new people who come into the organisation, or friends that I've talked to since taking the role, they're like, don't you guys just do maps? Isn't it just paper maps for when I go hiking? Now we have the OS Maps application, which is actually, is a natural transition away from the paper maps. We've got our devices with us, and there's a lot more capability on the obviously the app itself. So having that out in the field is great. But that's actually a really small part of what we do. It's only a fraction of the level of technology that we embed within OS, and actually even from a revenue perspective, if you're looking at it purely from a numbers perspective. So the data that we deliver to both public and private sector, it's equated for the economic benefit being kind of anywhere between 800 million to £1 billion a year. So you can imagine it underpins a lot of the blue light services. So emergency services utilize our data. It's utilized for a lot of the asset management activities. So when you think about managing your street lights or your street signs or your road condition, all of that is underpinned by a set of kind of foundational data. Not to mention all of the land and property, and if you think about from every time if you've gone through the process of buying a house, if you're able to put down a deposit and you get to the point where you're seeing your plot, that also has an influence from Ordnance Survey. So it underpins such a large part of what we do within the UK. And a lot of the public and even private sectors, from utilities companies, knowing where certain assets are and how to maintain them. It's all underpinned by OS data.
Fantastic. And look, I use the OS Maps app, so I can definitely plug that. It is a great app. But as you say, I think maybe people listening in might not really have appreciated just the vast impact that their work can have beyond working on a specific consumer product. I mean, you can impact people's lives right across the UK on a daily basis with your work at Ordnance Survey, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it has, it's everything looking forward. You asked me earlier around, possible kind of sneak peeks. There's also kind of opportunities for us to be able to use our data from a sustainability standpoint, right? So when we look at new techniques of analyzing imagery, is there an opportunity for us to be able to deliver additional value that then not just benefits directly from an economic standpoint, but also has an impact on climate, etc., to be able to monitor how are we managing the land use, and is there a better way to do that more sustainably?
Fantastic. Yeah, always eye-opening to hear about these and these other ways that Ordnance Survey really has an impact on day-to-day life. So no, thank you so much for sharing. What aspects of the company's culture have surprised you most since joining?
I mean, I think for an organization which has been around for the length of time that it has, like I said, like over 200 years, the energy and the spirit that's within the individuals that work here is really something that takes you back. I mean, I felt incredibly welcomed coming into the organization. It's people really understand the benefit that they deliver to the British economy, and I think they wear the OS logo with pride, right? So I went out with some of the surveying teams as well, and you see the pride that they take in the work because they know the value that it delivers to society. It does move you, I got to say.
Fantastic. And I think, you almost touched on something there within that answer as well, which I think speaks to the culture. The fact that the CTO is going out with the surveying team, I think says a lot in itself, right? Definitely not working in silos, looking to kind of collect that feedback across the organization. Is that kind of cross-functional approach something that, is inherent to Ordnance Survey?
I think there's a very open culture to actually engaging with other parts of the business. So it's not, there are clearly departments and teams that are formed around specific purposes, but everyone, like I said, is incredibly welcome. So, next week I'm going to be joining some of the customer services team and sitting and being on the phones, hearing about, some of the requests that they've got there and the challenges that they've got. But I think in any of these roles, it's important to be able to try and understand how the business operates more widely. We actually had the CEO even sitting on the front desk for a day. So, we really have got that kind of open style culture where we're trying to engage with the entire organization and understand how it operates.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that. I think, there's definitely a lot of organizations out there that could take a leaf out of Ordnance Survey's book. I think that is a really great approach. And I think, again, for anyone listening in, right, opportunity to work on some really innovative projects, have a UK-wide impact on a daily basis, as well as be part of a collaborative and welcoming culture. Definitely sounds like the sort of opportunity that anyone out there looking should certainly reach out and connect with Ordnance Survey about. I guess stepping away from just Ordnance Survey for this next question, what has been the most rewarding part of your career journey so far?
So I've had the kind of fortune of being able to work on kind of new products into the market, and so I've worked on two products that have successfully kind of been implemented and the market's adopted. And I do take a lot of pride in that because there's a lot of work that goes into the years before you launch a product and then actually seeing the level of adoption that happens. But more than the actual products, I think it's the actual teams that you build behind the scenes that end up delivering the product and seeing the way that they engage together to solve the difficult problems, putting that team together, that they not only are they spending time together to be able to sort those problems out at work, but then still have the level of friendship to want to meet up after work and either go grab a drink and then celebrate the wins together. So I take a lot of pride, I think, in the teams that I've built, and I hope that here at OS it will be more of the same.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think any product release is a bit of an iceberg, right? The public sees that little tip sticking out, but they don't see all of those years of work and research and all the different roles from the initial planning of product managers or BI developers giving you that initial insight right the way through to the actual coding and release. So can definitely see why that would be something that really struck you with pride. And again, I think this leads us really nicely into the follow-up question. So, I think it really speaks to yourself as a leader, the fact that, your proudest accomplishment is having built those teams and seen how those teams interact and clearly built very cohesive teams to deliver in those products. So what advice would you give to someone looking to break into a leadership role in technology?
I think the word leadership comes with a bit of a fear factor because obviously it means more responsibility. So naturally, there's a kind of tendency maybe to shy away from it. But I think, one of the things a colleague once said to me was that, leadership is those things that you take. It's not something you're given. And I think there's lots of opportunities for anyone in any role that they're kind of running at the moment to be able to identify where a problem exists and kind of stepping in to be able to find a solution for it. And that is leadership. That's leadership in its purest form. So providing you're in the right type of organization, that level of leadership will be recognized, and it will give you the opportunity to be able to grow and hopefully then progress within the organization. I think it's really important to remember that you need to keep working on your skills. Learning doesn't stop when we leave school, although we do think about it from that perspective. But just keep reading. There's so much great material out there. Keep kind of building on the skills you have. I think the communication skills are one of the ones that, despite kind of feeling like I have quite a strong kind of technical background, the communication skills are time and time again the ones that I fall back on, because the number of times you're challenged to be able to communicate quite difficult ideas to a wide audience, you utilize those skills day in, day out. So I would say keep working on those skills, keep trying to improve yourself, and take the opportunities when you identify them to be able to step into that leadership role, however small it is. Those small steps all add up to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. I mean, you can be a leader without necessarily having that lead title. Now it's on the business to recognize that and, ensure if people are taking on those responsibilities and they are stepping up, that over time those opportunities are available for them to then perhaps make that more formal move. But couldn't agree more. You can definitely, start to evidence that stuff straight away. And certainly on the communication side of things, I mean, as a technical professional, like there's only so much you can physically do, right? You need that team, you need the backing of the others with all their various different expertise. So being someone who can communicate effectively, who can draw people together, who can help prioritize, help balance priorities, is as you say, far more integral than some amazing coding skills or whatever else it might be from the kind of IC world.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, amazing coding skills are still really strongly valued. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more that you can deliver, and taking the opportunity and kind of moving forward with that is absolutely crucial.
So before we wrap up for today's episode, it'd be great for you to just give our audience a little bit of a flavour of the types of roles that you're hiring for at the moment. If you could maybe just run through a few of the priority areas, and yeah, I'm sure anyone listening in that perhaps works in that area, their ears might prick up a little bit, because I'm sure they're very impressed with what they've heard so far.
Yeah, so we're recruiting a number of roles at the moment, everything from finance software engineers, infrastructure software engineers, who are mainly around how we deploy the software out, to support engineers in the background that are kind of working with the engineering teams, but also engaging with the users of the product and identifying issues and being able to relay those. So those are the kind of open roles we have at the moment, but I'd strongly encourage you to kind of have a look at the website where those roles are posted, and you'll get kind of the most up-to-date list of all of our open roles.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. And look, for anyone out there listening that has had their interest piqued, we will make sure that all relevant links are in the podcast description. So just scroll down on whichever podcast provider you're listening on, and you'll find all the links to get in touch with Ordnance Survey and find out a little bit more about some of the roles that they have going on. And I think, as I said earlier, based on what we've heard of the culture, the nature of the project, the impact of the project, I think certainly if you're in the market for a new role, it's worth starting a conversation, find out a bit more, and see where it goes. There's certainly no harm opening that door. Thank you so much for joining us today, Manish. Thank you so much for all your contributions. Some really good insight there into Ordnance Survey.
No, I really appreciate the time, Phil. So thanks for having me on your podcast. And look forward to maybe having some new people join Ordnance Survey, having listening to this podcast. So yeah, thanks very much.
Fantastic. And thank you to everyone out there listening. As ever, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and tune in next time for another episode of the DevLab Podcast.